It's our job to make sure that people understand what marketing is. It needs to be about growth. And I know Cannes Festival happened last week. It's not about winning Cannes Awards. It's nice. That's not why marketing is there. It's a testament to the creativity because that's how you get people engagement. You gotta be creative, you gotta stand out, you gotta have a voice, you gotta have a position, a point of view. But at the end of the day, that creative thinking needs to lead to growth and needs to drive top line growth.
Is there a special marketing power in having a higher level goal? Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm Jeremy Bergeron. Today, we're pleased to welcome Jawad Bisbis, Global Vice President of Marketing and Partnerships for the Ball Corporation. With over 25 years of marketing experience working at places like Coca-Cola, Luxottica, Procter & Gamble, and others, Jawad brings incredible perspective and experience to marketing at the Ball Corporation. Tune in to hear how he found a greater purpose in marketing sustainable solutions rather than just a product. This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce and the CMO Club. The CMO Club is a global community for senior marketing executives to come together, share ideas, and solve their toughest challenges in a collaborative and trusted environment with other marketing leaders. Salesforce and the CMO Club provide best-in-class programs, events, and a digital platform for marketing leaders to come together and be inspired like never before. Join our global community at thecmoclub.com. Where are you from? Where's home for you? Where'd you grow up?
Home is Morocco. I was born and I grew up in Casablanca, Morocco. So that's where I'm originally from.
Okay. Big family? Small family?
Medium family. I have a brother and sister. I'm the oldest.
Okay. So are you're the oldest child. Now, it's interesting you said Morocco because I saw that when you got into P&G, you oversaw the Tide brand for the Morocco market. Was that because you were from that area?
Yeah, so basically that's where I grew up, but then I did my business school in France. Morocco used to be a French colony before, so French is my second language, not my first. My first is Arabic, and my third is English, obviously. So after my business school, I went back home and joined P&G.
Was your mom and dad entrepreneurial? Were they in the corporate world? Were they in the business world at all? Like, what was that? What was kind of home life for you? How did you get into this world of marketing and business?
Yeah, sure. No, my mom is a teacher. She's retired. She was an English teacher. My dad used to work in a government administration. So they're first generation from their family that went to college, both of them. We are from the countryside originally, so farmers mostly. And I'm kind of the second generation that went to college and kind of normal upbringing, medium class, good childhood, happy. And how I got to marketing, well, I went to business school and I had my major in management, minor in marketing. And when I went back home, and I had a job in France, so I could have stayed there. But when I went back home for holidays in Morocco, I went to a job fair and P&G was there. And obviously it's a great company to work for. So I ended up interviewing with P&G without the intent to move back home. But it worked out well, and I joined them, and I learned a lot. I mean, it's a great school of marketing. At least back in the day, it was the best school of marketing. I learned more about marketing in my 3 years at P&G than I probably learned in business school. So
wow.
I just got lucky, but there was not like a career plan built up front. That's where I wanted to be.
So, I mean, you joined P&G in the late 90s. You're there as an assistant brand manager. You had this portfolio of some of their hair care products. Some of these names, our audience might know: Pantene, Pert Plus, Head and Shoulders, right? I mean, these are common brands. So you're getting this experience, as you said, this school of marketing. What are some of these early lessons that you're learning in marketing in the late 90s and into the early 2000s? But when you're at P&G specifically, what are some of these lessons you're learning in marketing?
Well, it's funny because the first lesson I learned about marketing and P&G is still valid today, which is that marketing drives the business. It's not the case everywhere, but definitely it was the case in P&G, that marketing was at the center of the business. It's a marketing company, it's a brand company. And it's not like the tip of the iceberg is what people see, which is probably advertising, but marketing is much more than just communications. So what I learned is how you manage a brand, how you manage a business, how you manage a P&L, how you drive growth, and how you, more importantly, manage the cross-functional team. So working with manufacturing, working with finance, obviously with commercial, to drive initiatives, whether it's innovation project or communication project or activations. So that's why I said, like, I learned more than what I learned in school, because in school it tends to be more like marketing as advertising or as communication versus marketing as business.
And then you, after, I think 3 years and change at P&G, you ended up spending some time at the Coca-Cola Company, another really small, small retail brand that no one really knows about. But you spent almost, you spent 15 years or so at the Coca-Cola Company. Now you can parlay this experience from P&G. What are the things that you're starting to do at the Coca-Cola brand? Obviously a global recognized brand, and you had some really cool experiences in your 15 years there. But as you're now building on top of your learning at P&G, what are some of the things you're doing at the Coca-Cola Company, and maybe some things that stand out as big wins for you, lessons learned, things like that?
Sure. Well, the culture at Coke is very different than P&G. What I learned from P&G is really the hard skills. So project management, cross-functional team management, strategy. It's really everything is driven by data insight that lead to action. What I learned more at Coke are soft skills. Coke is a franchise system. So people know Coke as this big gorilla, but the reality is it's a system, because the guys that do the job are really the bottlers, and the bottlers tends to be local and tend to be locally owned as well. And they are the one that make the product, that sell the product, that manage the logistics of the product. So everything you do need to be aligned with your bottling system. And that means you got to learn to be much more resilient, to build influence in, to build value-based relationship, to be more patient, because things take more time to align the system. In P&G, everything was integrated. So from manufacturing to distribution. So it was all internal, so it's easier to align internally. With Coke, you got to align more externally. So what I learned more are really the soft skills. And one of the reasons I joined was also to kind of have an international career. And that's how I ended up in the US. I'm still based in Atlanta after 15 years, where the Coke head office is. And in between, I lived in different countries and continents. And I think for me, the biggest one is because I had this global career, is being open to different perspective. Mm-hmm. There's not right or wrong or black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray. So you got to be open to different points of views. Sometimes conflicting ones. You got to be able to manage ambiguity, what I call also constructive tension, a tension that leads to better results. And I also worked with like super smart people from all over the world. And that was only possible because I was able to go outside of my home country and explore the world.
And you also, were you live in Dubai at one point when you were with Luxottica?
Yeah, exactly.
Another huge brand. So you have indeed this like global perspective on marketing, driving business in lots of different markets and regions, lots of different types of brands, which is super interesting. And then you now in the past, you're in your first year, I think, at Ball right now, right? Yeah. So now
just finished 6 months.
Okay. So, and as you know, the role of, marketing leader in an organization is just such an interesting role, especially now. You're seeing a lot of notable brands shift the CMO or kind of head of marketing role into different aspects. Some of them are completely doing away with the title CMO, and they're shifting into other parts of the business. And it's interesting to see a lot in flux for marketing leaders. And you come from, a lot of credibility at P&G and the Coke Company and Luxottica and Focus Brands and 7-Eleven. And so you've got this pedigree and this credibility and rigor to marketing. And now here we are in this really interesting, fast changing world. And now you're also at a very large organization in Ball Corporation. And so What does it mean for you now to be a marketing leader in 2022 when it seems like there's a lot in flux, and it seems like that role among the leadership roles is one that's in a period of kind of dynamic shifting? What's that been like for you?
Well, it's probably the role in the C-suite that has the less tenure. I think the tenure of a CMO is 2-3 years max, and
Yep.
and a lot of the time the relationship between the CEO and the CMO is not at their best. They're at their best definitely with their CFO and sometimes with their chief commercial officer. The CMO is more challenging. I think because we are not doing justice to the function. I think marketing is art and science. And sometimes it shifts and bends towards arts and other times towards science. Leadership wants more science than art. They want to know that their investment, whether that's people or marketing budget or resources, are going to lead to growth. And that should be the role of marketing. The role of marketing, along with the commercial team, is to drive the top line growth. And that's why you saw like a lot of renaming, repurposing of the CMO role over the last few years, calling it Chief Growth Officer, which included digital, sometimes commercial, innovation strategy. And because I think there's always this, again, tension about, is marketing a cost center or is it a profit center? Until we solve it, we're not doing justice to the function. And I think that's why, it's been always kind of dynamic, and it's been always kind of, there's always back and forth between different titles and different scopes of the role. But it's our job to make sure that people understand what marketing is. It needs to be about growth. It's not about, and I know Cannes Festival happened last week. It's not about winning Cannes Awards. It's nice. That's not why marketing is there. It's a testament to the creativity, because that's how you get people engagement. You got to be creative. You got to stand out. You got to have a voice. You got to have a position, a point of view. But at the end of the day, that creative thinking needs to lead to growth and needs to drive top line growth. And if it does not, then at some time, people probably don't have the same patience as they may have with other functions.
So when people think of the Ball Corporation, I know a lot of people think, old school mason jars, and that's a part of the history of this brand. But if you take a closer look at this brand now, there's so much more happening inside of this brand. For our audience, will you describe Ball Corporation and then your role as Global VP of Marketing?
So Ball is all about sustainability. Ball is a global leader in sustainability across different business units. So you talked about Mason Jar. That's a business that's a legacy business. That's a business that was sold almost 30 years ago, but people still connect the company with the brand. It's owned now by Newell Brands, which is also based in Atlanta. Ball is based in Denver, by the way, at least our head office, but we have plants all over the world and all over the US. So the core business is really packaging and aluminum packaging, whether that's for beverages or for CPG. So our primary business unit is the global beverage unit, which is basically manufacturing aluminum cans, aluminum bottles for big beverage manufacturers like Coke, like Pepsi, like ABI, Molson Coors, Monster, Red Bull, you name it, we do it. And that's the core business. And a lot of people don't know that, but aluminum is the most sustainable packaging out there. It's definitely better than plastic, better than glass, better than cartons or Tetra Pak. And that's what we gotta do. We gotta educate more people that, if you want to go into a beverage business, that's the right packaging to go with. And that's our legacy business, because we've been there for more than 50 years now. Then there's the aerosol business, which also makes aluminum packaging, but for CPG companies like Unilever or P&G, that are using for their household goods. And then interestingly enough, our first business before these two businesses is the aerospace, which dates back to the 50s, where we help build satellite and sensors. But it's also about sustainability, because they are used to monitor climate change, the effect of global warming on Earth. We can even look into microplastic in the oceans. So a lot of that data is used with government and non-government organization to track global warming and climate change on Earth. And then our newest business, which is the business I'm in, is the cup business. And that just started last year. And it started from the fact that our business is about sustainability and the fact that there's billions of plastic cups that are still being used in the US and across the world. Indeed, in the US only, there's 15 billion plastic cup that gets used every year. And most of them end up in landfills or get incinerated, but not recycled. The recycling rate is less than 5%. So Ball tried to find a solution for that. And they end up building a plant which is an hour north from where I live in Atlanta, here in Rome, Georgia. And we started this business last year. This is year one. I was hired 6 months ago as the global VP of marketing. So basically my role is build awareness around this cup, tell the story. Yesterday, we just made the first 9-ounce cup. This is a cute small cups. We started with the 16 and 20 ounce. So this is kind of the latest innovation. And my role is to build awareness for this business. We sell it in retail. We're in Walmart, at Target, at Kroger, in the South here in Publix, Midwest in Meijer, Albertson, Hall Deleuze, and more, a lot of regional grocery retailers. But we're also in food service on premise. So we work with a lot of stadium venues around here in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz and State Farm, but across the U.S. So Ball Arena, for instance, in Denver is one of our assets and anchor venues. And I was glad that the Avs won the Stanley Cup, obviously. So that's a good news for the company and for Colorado and Denver in particular. And we also work with the other cronky properties like SoFi Stadium in LA and Emirates Stadiums in London. So it's a mix of food service and retail. And my role is to use all these channels, all these assets to build awareness around this business, to build trial. It's really the top of the funnel. Like it's super classic marketing. But we know that when we build the top of the funnel, it flows through the funnel. The conversion rates are high. When people try it, they rave about it. They love the fact that it keeps their beverage cold, that it's more premium, that it's refillable and recyclable. A lot of people in these venues end up taking it home. So we did, for instance, partnership with Coldplay, and this is basically the Coldplay Cup.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of people take it back home. It becomes a collectible.
Also D2C or only going through like retail? And
we're on Amazon. We're on Walmart.com, on all retailers' online platforms as well.
What was the opportunity that you saw from the kind of outside looking in before joining Ball? Like, what are the things you're evaluating, drawing from all your experience before? What did you see as this big opportunity? And what was kind of your first 90 days like? What did you do? What are the changes you made or observations you made that set you up for success now a half a year in?
I've been in marketing for 25 years. Indeed, last year I finished my 25 years in marketing. So I kind of reflected on what I learned and also where I want to go next. So as you said, I worked for P&G. So I sold hair care. I sold fabric care. I sold obviously soft drinks. I sold retail concept. I sold eyewear with Luxottica, beverages again with 7-Eleven, which is all good. But at some point in your career, you're looking for purpose. You're looking to do something meaningful, something that have an impact, something that may change the world eventually. And when this business came in, it came just at the right time where I was kind of thinking like, what's the next 15 years are going to look like and where I want to be and how can I use my experience, my expertise, my skill set to do something that is positive, especially in a world where we know there's a lot of impact around climate change and global warming. So that's what got me into this business. And also what I liked about it is still a startup to scale up. So Ball is a almost $15 billion global organization. We're a small piece of that. We're still a small startup within that organization. So being able to come in year one and shape the business and be part of the team that eventually gonna transform and scale this business was what got me excited above and beyond, obviously, the sustainability, which is kind of at its core purpose and the reason why this business exists. So that's what got me here. The first 60 days was really working on the strategy and then aligning leadership on the strategy. So that was kind of my focus the first 60 days.
What are some of the things that you do there to align with these other stakeholders that maybe were there before you, that have a different viewpoint, that might challenge you? What are some of the ways you really build that trust with other executives?
I think the challenge with this business, this is the first B2C business for Ball Corporation since the Mason jar. So
Ah,
Ball is mostly a B2B. Their business model is super predictable. They work with the global key account, and I named some of them. And they have multi-year contracts. So then they build manufacturing plants, based on the commitments made with those global key accounts. So it's a kind of predictable business because they have those long-term contracts. This is a business where the company invested $300 million in a new plant, without really having commitments from customers to buy
wow.
into it. So the heavy lifting needs to be done from marketing, from commercial, to introduce it in retail, on e-com, in food service, to build awareness. It requires marketing investment. So the first thing is you gotta socialize how this business is different and how it's gonna take time to scale up, and provide some confidence to leadership that you can scale it up. That's why you got to start with the strategy. And when I say strategy, I don't mean marketing strategy. I mean, what's the business growth strategy? And that's what we did the first 60 days. And then we aligned it all the way to the CEO. And it became kind of the roadmap for growth.
What are some of the most effective channels that you're seeing right now? What's working really well?
From a media standpoint, it's definitely digital social. Plus activation, anything that's, again, as I said, when people experience the cup in a stadium, in a venue, in a music festival, it's memorable. They even end up taking it back home, and the cup becomes the channel. I would say from sales channel, we are kind of even between retail and food service, with e-com kind of the third channel there. But the business is kind of balanced between the two.
Got it. Yeah. One of our producers actually he has one of the cups right now. He showed me before. We need some of these cups in Austin, Texas. We've got the MLS soccer team here. We've got some big venues. We've got some music festivals here. So I feel like there's a big opportunity for you guys to come here and make a splash here in Austin and Texas broadly too.
I love Austin. I mean, I used to travel a lot to Dallas where 7-Eleven is. So I went there also for store visit. And we need to bring the cup to Austin.
What kind of team culture do you aim to build at Ball Corporation? What's just your approach to, building culture in a high-performing team in 2022 as a marketing leader?
Well, as I said, we're a startup within a large organization. So the culture that we're trying to build is a bit different from the overall Ball culture.
Okay.
We need a much more entrepreneurial culture. We need people that are scrappy, people that make decisions fast, that are enabled and empowered to take risks and fail fast, learn, scale, or move on. So that's really the core is we hire based on that skill set. Are these people that are able to deal with ambiguity, to pivot fast? You talked about the pandemic. I mean, every organization had to pivot probably 4 or 5 times a year during the last couple of years. We're talking about sometimes pivoting every month. So you got to be able to be open to change, be open to ambiguity, be able to pivot fast when something don't work. You cut the rope and you move on. And that's really I would say, requirement number one. The second one is you got to lead with purpose. So we hire people that also have that same sense of purpose, that want to do something that is meaningful, that are not there just for the paycheck. So that's I would say number two. And the other one is to build a diverse, inclusive team, because our customers are diverse. Our team needs to be as diverse as our customer base. And I mean diversity in terms of thought, in terms of perspective, in terms of ethnicity, background, gender, you name it. So those are really the three that matter for this business unit within Ball. But some of those values also are the same within the Ball organization. So there is a good, let's say, healthy tension, but there's also good alignment in terms of culture between our operating unit and the overall organization.
I read that Ball was pretty big on diversity even before it became like a hot topic. Now everybody's talking about DE&I and it's important, but it seems like Ball was already making investments in diversity years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room to grow. The worst thing you can do is being complacent and saying, "Hey, I got it." You never got it. It's a never-ending process. So yes, we are a company that's always been as diverse as the customer base we serve. We have manufacturing all over the world. So basically, our employees are kind of mirroring the markets and the countries where they are in. We just need to build on that and do more.
When you talked about kind of cutting the rope, right? We'll say when something's not going well, especially in marketing, you're launching a campaign or you have an idea for an activation or there's something that you're investing time and energy in and you're seeing that it's not working. And I think this is kind of where there can be some ambiguity in terms of, okay, when do we cut the rope, right? As a marketing leader, how far do we push it down the road, even though it seemingly is not giving us the result now? What's your perspective on, just on timing on some of these things? Because you could maybe cut the rope a little too soon, and there's a lot of technology and innovation happening in this world where you also could be not moving fast enough. And so there's a lot of tension in that. And how do you view that?
Yeah, I think because marketing is an art and science, a lot of people tend to fall in love with the project, with the brand, with the initiative. And when you fall in love with it or with the innovation, you want to take it all the way. And even when it's not working, you're trying to salvage it. And that's where it's becoming problematic. You got to cut it at the right time. I'm a proponent of cutting it early. If things don't work, cut it, move on. Again, fail fast, learn, and iterate. And when things work, then you can scale them. But there is not like an ideal time frame. I mean, and different people have different perspective. But I think the worst thing we can do as marketeers is fall in love with a project, with an innovation, because it becomes your baby. So you don't want to abandon it, right? You want to nurture it and try to find ways to grow it. And I think it's fine. There's some level of experimentation. And as long as there is 20% experimentation, not 80%, I'm fine with. I think we just got to find the right balance. When it's the core business and something does not work, learn from it and move on. And we have metrics, like it's not the 90s. Like if you look at digital and social, you can track metrics on a weekly basis. You know which creative is working, which is not. You know which channels are working, which are not. You have clear KPIs. If things work, you invest more. If they don't, then you shift that investment into creative content channels that work better.
You're marketing this newer business. It's part of a larger business, but you said yourself, it's very entrepreneurial there, so you can move a little quicker. There's some velocity there. And what has become kind of table stakes for you now with your approach to marketing and marketing leadership that maybe wasn't the case a couple of years back? Has the game changed so much now as a marketing leader from when you were at Coke and and marketing at P&G? If so, what are some of the top 1-2 things that are really relevant now that maybe were not as relevant in you coming up in the marketing game?
Well, it's definitely performance marketing. We didn't have as much data even 10 years back. But now with machine learning, with AI, with big data, I mean, there's a ton of data out there. The challenge is more how to use the data, how you make sense of the data to make decisions. So that's for me, the biggest focus in terms of learning, because I'm still learning as far as performance marketing is concerned. And that's what makes this function now much more interesting, because then you have a lot of data that you can use to showcase leadership and stakeholders, whether you got to move in this direction or in that direction, which you may not have had in the past. And in the past, you may wait for the monthly tracking, whether it's retail audit tracking or brand tracking, to see whether you're making progress. Sometimes it was quarterly to see whether you're making progress. Now you get data like every day if you want to.
What are your thoughts just on personalization and kind of the story you want to tell, especially customers connecting to your brand? It looks like there was some kind of influencer, at least introductions on the YouTube channel. I saw some stuff with wide receiver in the NFL. And so looking to connect, influencers with the brand and the fans and the users. What are some of the things you're doing to personalize, the messaging, and what are you seeing out in the marketplace now with this new focus on personalization?
Well, the beauty of digital and social is that you can personalize the message to different cohorts. So you can tailor different messaging, different content, different creative into different channels that target different cohort of customers. On the influencer side, we work with influencers that also care about sustainability. I think one of the key values that is important, has been important for years now, is being authentic and transparent. People figure it out. Like if you're doing greenwashing, people will see it. People can search you online, so you can't fake it. So we want to work with influencers that believe the same thing as we do. I think you named one of them, Cooper Cup. So I have a Cooper Cup also, which we did for the Super Bowl earlier this year. The reason we work with Cooper is because he believes in sustainability. He's a brand ambassador for the cup. He loves it. And he talks about it whether, there's a partnership or not. So we're looking for similar influencer. Coldplay is another one. Like, they came to us because they wanted to be the most sustainable touring band in the world. And they stopped their tours for a couple of years until they figured out how they can reduce their carbon footprint. And they came to us because they didn't want to have plastic in their concert, and they wanted something that is more sustainable. So you got to find the right partners that have the same belief. Mercedes-Benz here in Atlanta is the same. So they came because they wanted something that is more sustainable, something that is more fully circular. So you got to work with influencers, whether those are influencers on TikTok or corporate influencers or nonprofit organization that have the same objective as you have, and that really want a partnership, not just a sponsorship.
What's been a recent win for you? I mean, and I think about, just look at your opportunity at Ball in the past, 6 months, almost a year now. What was the last thing that happened where you kind of had this, it's the moment of all right, we're on to something, right? Because a lot of strategy and, execution, kind of waiting the game and seeing if these moves are being made accurately, and we're driving growth and these things are happening. You got to be able to celebrate these things along the way. What was the last thing that happened in your tenure there at Ball where you had this moment of just yes, we made the bet, we placed the bet, and we hit the mark, or maybe we exceeded the mark? Take us inside that story and that example.
Sure. There are multiple, but the first one that comes to mind is our partnership with Jason Momoa. That's another guy that believes in sustainability. We did a campaign with him last year, which you may have seen on YouTube. But we have kept that partnership because he cares. And he came to us because he wanted to do a social media stunt during Earth Day with the Make Waves campaign. And we worked together on creating the content. We worked with his brand Mananalu as well, which happens to be also a package. It's a water brand, and it's packaged in an aluminum bottle that we make. So there was a fit from his business standpoint, from his beliefs and values standpoint, and obviously he's got a big follower base. And he created a lot of content, and he asked his celebrity friends to get in and engage and make a statement about the environment during Earth Day. So it was super organic. It's not something where we invested a lot. I'm talking resources, dollars, but it's something that got us 10x what we probably put in. And that's kind of the partnership we're looking at. Really, people that believe in the mission and then want to do something for the environment. And this is one simple way to do it. Ditching plastic cup for more sustainable, recyclable aluminum cups.
So partnerships is also in your title. Is that the aspect of building these relationships with the Jason Momoas and the Cooper Cups, and is that the types of partnerships, like these influencer partnerships, or is this partnerships more broadly with other brands? Or
it's both. So we're starting to work with some of our global key accounts, like the Coca-Cola company, like PepsiCo, ABI, Molson. We already work with a few of them, with most of them already. So it's partnership with brands that care. It's partnership with other corporation and customers that care. So I talked about some of the venues. I talked about Cranky Sports and Entertainment. We were at the Miami Grand Prix at Hard Rock, obviously at SoFi during the big game. And then partnership with influencers, big and small, that also care about the environment. So it's not one or the other. It's really a mix of looking at the whole ecosystem and identifying who are the people that can help you expand your voice and make you bigger, and eventually help you drive awareness for the cup that will lead to more people changing their behavior. from whatever they're using now that is probably less sustainable to something that is more sustainable. So the objective of this partnership lies within the overall objective, which is building awareness trial for this container and getting more people to change their behavior. Because if you want to remove 15 billion plastic cups from the environment, that's going to take time. So it's either you got to go with a long-term view, or you got to go with the view which is how can I fast track it so it doesn't happen within 10, 20, 30 years, and where it might be too late to kind of make a real difference, to how do you make it happen within 3 to 5 years.
I'd love you to think kind of zooming out, macro of your just career. Again, you've worked at some incredible brands, had some awesome experiences living in other places outside of the US. So just reflecting on your career, I'd like you to just think about a time when you faced a crucial moment in your career, right? There was the sort of moment that can either kind of make or break situation or an opportunity. And I want to unpack that. We just give you a minute or so just to think about, a really big moment in your career, and it could be inside a ball, it could be at Coke or wherever, but a big moment that was this intersection of like, okay, the stakes are really high. I've got to get this right. Do you have a story that comes to mind?
Sure. Yeah. I would say when I first managed a global brand. So as you said, I worked in multiple countries before I came to the US. Then I came to Atlanta and I ended up managing one of our global brand, which is Powerade within our sports drink business. So I managed $2 billion brands. One was Powerade, the other one was Aquarius. And Powerade back then was a value brand. It was a brand that was launched as a competitor to Gatorade, which is owned by PepsiCo, which is the bigger name in sports drink. It was doing fine as we were kind of launching it into new market, building distribution, horizontal growth. But at some point, you kind of maximize that horizontal growth, whether it's new market or new customers. And when I joined in, the brand did not really have a point of view on sport, did not really have a positioning, did not really have a clear growth strategy. It was built bottom up. They don't have a global stewardship on the brand. And the business was not growing to the scale it should be. So that was probably the first big challenge that I faced, and the one where I learned a lot, helping solve big pain points, helping align stakeholders, helping drive an innovation pipeline that we didn't have, helping scale the business farther into more markets. And eventually gaining market share versus our main competitor and accelerating the business from low single digit to double digit growth 3 years in a row. And that was a journey. It was a hard journey. As I said, Coke is a system. Unlike other CPG like Unilever or Kraft or P&G, you have to align that system if you want to get things done, especially if you're talking about innovation, if you're talking about CapEx investment. Those are made by our bottling partners. So you got to make sure that they are brought in and they believe in the vision for change. So it required a lot of heavy lifting internally to align the markets and externally to align the system in investing into a brand that, while it was $1 billion brand, was a much smaller brand than some of the soft drinks that you guys already know. So that was kind of the biggest challenge. What I learned is the multiple things, the power of the collective genius. When you bring in right brain, left brain, people from diverse functions and background, that's when magic happens. That's when 1 + 1 = 3. So we had a super inclusive process to align and get everyone involved and get everyone brought into building the growth strategy, into building the brand positioning, eventually launching the first global campaign for Powerade, which was the first one was in 2010 during the FIFA World Cup in South Africa. Then we had another one for the Olympics. So bringing all that system together around some of the biggest global assets that Coke owned, and using them as a tent pole to scale the voice of the brand while not having the same resources as our main competitor was really critical to driving growth back into the business, but also innovating. So that's when we launched Powerade IN4. We ended up scaling it in more than 30 markets. That's when we launched Powerade Zero, which was the first zero sports drink. I think Gatorade only did zero a few years ago, and we were able to get 20% market share there. Yeah, so kind of that collective genius, bringing people together, staying resilient, because there's always, a resistance to change, especially if the markets have already built entrenched behavior on what is right versus what is wrong, especially when you have different ways to build the brand, whether you are in the US or you are in Latin America or you are in Europe or Australia. Changing that entrenched behavior and changing the culture and driving change or transformation takes time. So you got to also be resilient, and you got to stay the course, believe in the growth strategy, and continue to execute. And when you get some wins, more people comes in, you build brand ambassadors, you build fans, internally, and they help you spread the gospel, and you get more resources, and it makes things a little bit easier when you want to invest more.
Have you been able to go to some of these sporting events?
Yeah.
I feel like you have had an opportunity to go to some pretty amazing events.
Yeah, I've been to those two that I talked about among others. That's part of the, that's let's say the fun part of the job.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. That's really cool. There's the B2C component you talked about. There's also still a B2B component because you're still looking for food service and retail partners as well, right? So you're still marketing to the B2B world, and you're also marketing to the B2C world. Are you still overseeing kind of both of those things?
Yeah, so we have two sets of customers. We have the end customer, which is consumers that want to change their behavior, but we also have customers, corporations, food service, whether it's restaurant chains or golf courses or bars and pubs or stadiums and entertainment venues. And that's more B2B. And obviously the marketing there is going to look different. It's going to be a mix of trade shows, conferences, a lot of influencing, a lot of networking, a lot of building relationship, and a lot of alignment on the sustainability goals. So it's really critical that they have similar goals, and we are there to help them support one of their goals.
It seems like having those values aligned is really important for you and team and the approach. It's like, before we get too far down the road, let's make sure we're aligning on our values and what we're doing. And I think that's huge.
You gotta lead with sustainability, because that's the value proposition. So you don't go and say, I'm here to sell the cup. You're here to sell a sustainability solution that is a fully circular solution. So if Mercedes-Benz wants a full circular system where they have something that is recyclable, but they also understand how it gets collected, how it gets recycled, and how it gets put back in the market, we always say that, aluminum is back on shelf or can be back on shelf within 60 days. That's based on data. And you can't say that for any other container because this one is infinitely recyclable. It does not degrade. Other degrade over time. So eventually it will end up incinerated or in landfill. Aluminum, if it's been created 100 years ago, it's probably still here today. So that's why it's important to educate, but also lead with sustainability first and make sure that they have the same objective, whether it's one of our global key accounts like Coke, Pepsi, or ABI, whether it's some of the big venues in the US, especially the sport venues, or whether it's other food service customers that we work with.
What are your thoughts on this kind of new cookieless future that we're getting into? First-party data seems to be a lot more important now. And what's your thoughts and opinion on that?
Well, I think it's important to respect people's privacy, and people have to opt in, and it needs to be their choice to opt in. It shouldn't be by default. So our role is to make sure that we have content that is engaging, that we're not spamming them, and to tell a story that they want to hear, a story that they want to spread around. And the beauty about this business, as I said, like when people try it, they become our first fans, they become our brand ambassador, and our key channel is word of mouth. And when you look at the data, that's the most important channel. That's the channel that drives behavior. People talking about it to their friends, family, when they have a party, when they have an outdoor gathering, when they have a barbecue, especially in summer, etc. So you gotta respect the privacy, lead with engaging content, give the people the opportunity to opt in or opt out if they don't want to, and make sure that you're always leading with purpose, leading with values, and making sure again that those values align with your customers. Some customers cares about sustainability, others don't. That's why we talk with our psychographic segmentation. We're focusing on what we call eco-conscious customers, people that want to do something for the environment. They may not know what, and this is a simple way to do something that does not require a lot of heavy lifting. This just requires a behavior change. This just require moving from one beverage container that is less sustainable to something that is more sustainable. We're not asking you to go collect, recycle. That work is done on the back. So yeah, I think it's part of Web3 with other transformational innovation happening like the metaverse, and we need to stay close to those trends. And as I said, I think marketing has changed over the last few years, probably more than over the last 30 years. And I'm still learning, and there's a lot of stuff that I still don't know. I'm lucky to have a team that probably know, and an agency partner that know more than me. And I'm a lifetime learner. So that's what makes marketing exciting. That's why I'm not an accountant, among others, because
Right.
you learn for as long as you want to.
Exactly.
And it's always dynamic. It's always changing. It's a great job if you love change, if you thrive on change. It's a lousy job if you like comfort zone and you like keep doing the same thing over and over.
Are you finding any utility for the metaverse, NFTs, or any experimentation in that way that you can share?
Not yet. I would say on that front, we're probably not leading. We're more following. I think, as I said, we still have like a lot of channels that we know work well, and we want to focus on those channels given that we have limited resources. We are experimenting with some channels, but not yet NFTs, not yet the metaverse. We want to give it a little bit more time. Again, going back to the objective, which is growth. If it drives growth, if it's proven to drive growth, then we'll invest on it. If it's more experimental, we'll probably put a little bit just to see how it works and test and maybe build the business case for investment. But we're still kind of at the tip of the iceberg.
Is there any specific topic you're like, want to make sure we get some time on?
For me, it's really about how do we put marketing in the C-suite, in the table, and how do we make sure that the voice is heard as much as the CFO voice and the chief commercial officer voice. So that's what I'm exciting for me is, again, the power of AI and machine learning and big data to help us be much more purposeful and come to the table with science more than art, because that's what leadership wants to hear. How is this investment going to drive an ROI? And if I put this into marketing, is it going to give me higher ROI than if I put it into a commercial program, or if I put it into increasing my capacity at the plant? You fight for resources. The pot is the same. So you got to be able to go and build that business case and tell your story and why you should invest in marketing as much as you invest in commercial, as much as you invest in supply chain, logistics, and manufacturing. So that's what exciting for me, like using all the data that we have today to be able to tell that story, to gain alignment and gain belief and confidence that what we do matters, that what we do drive growth. And it's a never-ending process because you got to do it over and over again every budget period.
That's good.
So that's what I'm excited to talk about. I can talk about creative for a while. I know a lot of CMOs do it, and I've done it in the past, and I love it. I'm more left-brainer, as you probably have perceived, than right-brainer, but I have so much respect for right-brainers. Some of my most inspirational bosses in the past were visionary right-brainers. I think they are the future. They are the entrepreneur. They are the change makers. And you need to have that vision. You need to have that, inspiration. but you also need to be able to tell a different story that matters for other stakeholders.
I'm curious if you can take us a layer below kind of how you do this, right? Because you said the voice of marketing, it's important, and marketing has to be at the table, not as a cost center, but as a revenue driver of growth. And that makes a lot of sense. But then there's just the how, right? How are you, you're talking about using data to tell stories. I love that. But how are you ensuring that marketing does have a voice, that you're fighting for, the resources and the support that you need to grow this opportunity like you can? Is there something to your approach or strategy of how you do that has benefited you and is working well, that maybe other marketing leaders can look, oh, wow, next time I meet with the board, or next time I meet with the CEO or the CFO, here's an approach that I could learn from Jawad?
I think I kind of voiced it before. I don't talk about marketing strategy. I talk about business strategy or growth strategy. When I talked about Powered, I said what we built was a growth strategy. When I talked about my first 60 days, what we built was a commercial or growth strategy or business strategy. If you lead with a strategy, and that's a business strategy, marketing is part of that, but it's not just marketing, then obviously it's closer to what people know, because you're using a code, a language that the key stakeholders that your CFO mostly understand, and he's the one who's going to give you that investment, whether it's people, budget, or capex. So that's really, I would say, my advice for marketeers. Don't talk about just marketing. Talk about growth. Talk about the business. And if you do that, then there's a chance people will hear you, will listen to you, and will understand what you do.
That's good.
Especially if you are a B2B business, which is our legacy. We have to do even more to educate our stakeholders. Why does it matter to invest in marketing? Obviously, CPGs are way ahead they are a brand business. All marketing has always been at the center. So it's the journeys might be different between a B2B and a B2C. And the gap is probably different between a B2B and B2C. But I would say even within CPG, I've seen a lot of transformation in the last few years where companies are investing more into performance marketing, into building marketing efficiencies and effectiveness, including a Coca-Cola company. So you got to find that right balance between investing in what is proven to drive the business, but also keep experimenting, because that's how you push the boundaries. That's how you push the envelope. You got to do both. It's not an or, it's an and. It's like art and science. It's not an or, it's an and. And experimentation and proven business growth levers are also an and.
Are you ready to get into some lightning round questions?
Sure.
Okay, so before the first question, we just want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. For those marketers out there that want to learn more, head over to salesforce.com/marketing. And we have Jawad Bisbis, VP of Marketing and Global Marketing and Partnerships at Ball. First question, Jawad, you live in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite thing about Atlanta?
My favorite thing is super convenient. It's 3 hours flight from anywhere in the US. The weather is great. If you love outdoor, there is everything from mountains to lake. The beach is 4 hours drive. So just the convenience of it. That's what I love about it.
Okay. What's a life lesson that you learned the hard way?
Resistant to change, or being comfortable with change. I've been with Coke for 15 years, so I got into a comfort zone. So being able to kind of remove that and do something else and try something else and take risks along the way, that was hard, but it was the right thing to do, and it's a muscle that allows me now to do more than I probably did a few years back.
Okay. What is an activity that makes you lose track of time?
Playing tennis.
Oh, okay. If you have to build a marketing team from scratch, what role are you hiring first and why?
Well, you probably would have guessed it, a data analyst.
Okay. All right. Okay. And why? Why
data because
analyst?
You got to lead with data. I mean, you got to have someone who's going to help you build a business case for investment and get the data, turn it into insight, turn it into strategy that drive action, and then ask for resources based on that.
That's great. What is your favorite app on your phone?
LinkedIn.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I'm super
nice.
active on LinkedIn.
There's a small percentage. You're one, Don McGuire, the CMO for Qualcomm. He came in the studio. He's active on it. So there are some executives like yourself that are active, but I find it's less common, but I like that's your favorite. If you had a time machine, where and when would you go?
I'll go in the future.
Okay.
Not in
How
the
far?
past. I'll go far where people have solved global warming, where all these diseases have been cured, and where, more importantly, we rediscover to live with nature like we used to do 1,000 years ago. I think we got to stop destroying nature because we have one Earth, and I believe that humans are survivors. That's why we've been here for thousands of years, and we'll figure it out. Because when we know that it's gonna kind of affect our own well-being and our livelihood and our children's livelihood, we'll do something about it.
Okay, last question. What is one thing that you would like to do this year that you've never done before?
One thing this year, I would, if I have the choice and the time, sail the Caribbean in a sailboat, not a cruise.
Okay.
I don't know how to sail, but I will learn how to do it and stop in every island and just take the time.
Okay, I like that. I'll meet you there. That's a great one. Jawad, thank you for being here. This is an incredible conversation. Such a privilege to have an opportunity to connect with you and share a bit of your story and perspective on marketing, on leadership, on how you're able to, fight for market share inside the boardroom and outside the boardroom. It's really beautiful. So thank you for being here and wishing you the best, and a big shout out to you and the Ball family.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is brought to you by Salesforce and the CMO Club. The CMO Club is a global community for senior marketing executives to come together, share ideas, and solve their toughest challenges in a collaborative and trusted environment with other marketing leaders. Salesforce and the CMO Club provide best-in-class programs, events, and a digital platform for marketing leaders to come together and be inspired like never before. Join our global community at thecmoclub.com.